CPL. And finally, the language around challenge exams was strengthened, where if upon request, faculty must or shall, it was stronger language, shall provide a challenge exam to students who ask for one. And we did this, quite honestly, because veterans were allowed access, and therefore we thought it's a great idea. We shall afford that access to all of our students. So the policy allows 4 types of credits, and those 4 are named here: external exams, experiential learning, often evaluated with a portfolio, workplace credits, and military credits. And each of these categories is addressed in a separate article of the policy. We'll go through all 4 of the articles and the types of experiences that may result in an award of academic credit. And then we'll describe in a little more detail the process by which these credits are applied to the academic record. So in Article 1, there are basically 2 types of credit by exam. There is the campus challenge exam. That's when the student shows up for class and says, wait, I think I already know that. We don't say, nor do we direct how the instructor shall assess that student claim, but we are very intentional in allowing students to make that claim and to have access to a challenge exam. And that was where the language was strengthened. The standardized exams that you probably all are familiar with remain in place, with guidance to avoid duplicative credit. And also a reminder that those standardized external exams, AB, IB, CLEP, the whole alphabet soup of learning, exist in another policy, credit for external exam. The equivalency for those external exams is determined at the system level, and we post those and keep those updated. I also wanted to highlight the process for transcribing and articulating external exam credit on ADTs. And again, a process that you are all likely familiar with, that the student's transcript shall be annotated to reflect the course to which credit is earned. I think that is frequently discovered practice, but I'm not too sure the extent to which it exists across the system. So a reminder that that's in place. Article 2 talks about credit for demonstrated learning, knowledge, or skills acquired through experience. So, for example, a student may have life or work experience, such as family business, and they've been managing the books for that. The student may ask that this kind of experiential learning be evaluated for academic credit, which will require a prior learning assessment. I know our community college colleagues have been very active in creating crosswalks between an assessment, a prior learning assessment, and the course that it is likely to track onto. At the bottom of all this, at the heart of it, is a prior learning assessment by a subject matter expert, usually a faculty member in that area. The student must be matriculated at that campus, completing at least 15 units of undergraduate work or 3 units of graduate class. So what was underneath all that? Well, in this way, the student is required to, quote, demonstrate a satisfactory learning pattern. So technically, if the student has done 15 units, you see that they are college ready, they are able to engage robustly in baccalaureate level work, then 15 units should do the trick. If there's some inconsistency in the student's record of learning, the campus, by their policy, may suggest that we need better evidence that they are able to master baccalaureate level work. So that is, again, up to campus policy to determine that. The assessments used for Article 2 are often a portfolio or some other demonstration of subject matter mastery that will be assessed again by the faculty on that campus. Article 3 refers to credits earned often in the workplace or industry. Many of these types of workplace certificates have already been assessed by ACE or the National College Credit Recommendation Service. So those are, Google, Microsoft, they often offer workplace credentials, and Article 3 describes the ways in which that credit counts. And again, the process is the same throughout. That credit shall be awarded for a specific course on the student's transcript. Marshall.
Well, good morning, everyone. I think the first question that comes up anytime we start talking about this article by article is, why do you need a separate section for military learning? And the first thing that I would say is, I guess we have to think about it from the standpoint that it's the only population of our students that we're required to assess prior learning by law. That has long been the case for federal law or by federal law, but recently, as you've heard a couple of times today, the state also passed a law that said we need to provide credit for prior learning for folks who served in the military. Now, when we talk about credit for prior learning, we also want to distinguish between a couple of things. The military services have several regionally accredited colleges and universities. Of course, we all know about the service academies, but there's also the Naval Postgraduate Academy. There's the Community College of the Air Force. And all of those should be treated just as if they are exactly what they are, regionally accredited colleges and universities. And so we would accept those credits as transfer credits. But there's also all that training that happens in the military. And if we're going to give credit for the learning that happens in that, obviously we need a little bit of help. And that's where the American Council on Education comes in. They actually hire university faculty members to go to military bases where training is happening. They observe the training, they review the curriculum, they review the learning objectives, how learning is measured, and then they provide a recommendation about how many units they believe should be awarded credit. And the way they document them is on the joint services transcripts, which we have, of course, all seen. I'd like, if I can, I'm going to try and share a screen right now too.
So I'm going to stop sharing, Marshall.
Okay. And I will, now I have too many screens open myself. Here we go. You guys should be able to see this. Actually, what I had just a sample of a joint services transcript, and then I realized ACE actually has a really lovely guide that tells you how to go through the joint services transcript, and it's much better than just looking at one. They have some lovely photos of some service members there, but they show what the transcript should look like. So here's a Navy transcript and an Army transcript. That's just the information on the top of them. And then they show them various military courses that folks have gone through. And if you can see my cursor there, you'll see this is recruit training. It shows the basic things that happen within recruit training, and then how many semester hours they recommend and whether it is going to be lower division or upper division. I'm going to scroll down a little bit further because one of the other things that we look at now is military experience, and AB 1002 actually is very clear. It says training and experience. And so we want to look at that as well. One of the things I really appreciate about ACE and their evaluations of these units is there are times where they say, look, you shouldn't get college level credit for that. And there's an example of this one right here, NER, SR, and it just says none. And so they're not recommending any credit as well. And so I think that's important because in all of the legislation that's gone through, it tells us we need to evaluate credit and grant it where it's appropriate. And there are times where it's not. And the thing that I always like to talk about is, the Marine Corps has these correspondence courses that people can take. And, if you take the Marine correspondence course on spelling for Marines, you're not going to get college credit for that. It's just not college level learning. So that's important. Okay, Melissa, I'll stop that share and we can go back to that other slide. Now, we have for a long time reviewed these joint services transcripts. But what has generally been the practice has been that we give lots of elective units. And those elective units are just general electives. They don't meet any direct degree requirements. They are not something that's specific for a course. And that will be our new practice. That is something that was put into the language of our policy in much the way that it was put into your policy as well in your Title V. And so we want to make sure that students are getting credit that's actually going to help them and doesn't overload them and make it where they are super seniors when they're juniors, where they can't get financial aid or they can't take the electives that they need to have a full load. And of course, then they can't get their housing allowance as well. So we say you have to give credit for a specific course or degree requirement. One example of what I mean by a degree requirement would be completion of boot camp could be viewed and used for Area E of the general education pattern, right? And that would be the specific degree requirement. And we go back to what Terrence was saying earlier, that, this is a faculty decision as to where we're going to find a course-to-course equivalency. And I know in your system, you have done a great deal of work in this area to document what you believe those course equivalencies are. That's something that we will get to. I think right now the best example of where that has happened a lot has been Cal Poly Pomona. If you look at their transfer evaluation system, it lists all of the different institutions that they have, to steal the word that Terrence uses all the time, crosswalked the military training to a specific course. And you can look it up by institution, and I encourage you to do that and look up American Council on Education as the institution. It shows the military things that they have already evaluated. And so I just think this is going to be really helpful, and look forward to answering any questions that you may have. Melissa, I think you might have a couple of other slides to go through. Okay, I'll hand it back to you.
All righty. And then the computer hates me. Sure. Come on. Well, gee, that's okay. There go. Now there it is. Application of credit for prior learning. This language appears in each article in the new policy. Again, as we've said, shall be awarded as a specific course. And each campus has the option to determine if this is in the major, general education, or in electives. And in an ADT, full or partial GE certification, again, whatever is on the community college transcript shall be evaluated as a course, not by the method by which it arrived on the transcript. And the reminder that students will be allowed to appeal decisions. While Marshall was speaking, I just saw a quick question in the chat about credit, no credit. If an evaluation is done of a student's learning, but it does not result in a grade, I assume that it will result in a credit, no credit notation on the transcript. The CSU accepts credit, no credit. It does not. It is neutral in terms of the calculation of the GPA. I encourage folks to look at our admission guidebook if there are similar questions about ways in which something is transcribed and the impact that will have at the time of admission. But we regularly accept credit, no credit. We cannot confirm that it is appropriate for all courses, for all majors. We allow discipline experts, the faculty, to determine the extent to which a particular major, particularly a more selective major, might accept a credit, no credit grading option. And that is where you can find us. And we are happy to answer questions now.
All right, folks, if you would like to either raise your hand or put any questions in the chat box, either one can work, as long as I figure out the technology to unmute you. I did post the Cal Poly Pomona's TES in the chat box. Frankly, that's one of the things that inspired me early on. So well done to the folks, Jose, everyone else over there at Cal Poly Pomona for leading the way. Janet, I see a question from you. Let me see if I can unmute you.
I guess I'm first here. Hey, thank you again for doing this, as I've attended these in the past and found them very Very helpful. I know on our campus, I developed a military credit policy, nothing like what Jose has, and that's what I hope to do in the future. It was really an uphill battle to get faculty to approve. And I think, just to put it out there, there is some discrimination against the military. As a veteran myself, I have felt that, you're pro-war because you're in the military, we don't want anything to do with you. And I know that's not politically correct to say, but that's the way I feel. I'm getting really emotional. I can't believe this. How do we get this information to the faculty to not just have them read it, but actually, own it and understand it and, know why the military is here for them and how they can help them in return?
We could do a whole workshop on that, Janet, can't we? And I understand that, particularly for a certain generation of faculty, there might be an anti-military bias, and that's unfortunate. I think reframing this as an equity issue, and I think our speakers this morning were really helpful in that regard. How is it that we expect students to pay for an internship when they're out in the field, but that same activity outside the classroom for a student who hasn't paid our tuition is somehow considered invalid? And how is it that we have allowed other students to test the extent to which they've mastered certain materials, but we distrust the military's delivery of that content? I don't think you're going to necessarily change hearts and minds just with reframing it as an equity argument, but I think that it really undergirds all of this effort, that it is an effort to create equity and to acknowledge learning regardless of whether we as faculty delivered it. That's a little bit presumptuous, right, a tad arrogant, and I could add some other adjectives if I had a little more coffee, I'm sure. But I also think that faculty are going to see more requests for that, and hopefully that will begin to demystify what the process is. I am hopeful that as the laws have mandated that veterans shall have access to this, the more they meet real life students with these interesting, fabulous, rich experiences, that hopefully the reality will set in that maybe their mindset has to shift. I don't know, Marshall, if you have any guidance, but I share your passion for this topic, and it is unfortunate. I recognize what you're saying.
Melissa, I think you covered it incredibly well. I don't even know if I could add anything to that. I do think that the more your faculty experience veterans in the classroom, they will hopefully have less and less of those preconceived notions about them. I know, for a long time, many of you know that I've done VetNet Ally programs around the state, and teaching faculty about the veteran experience and all of that. And I have found that one person in particular comes to mind who was a conscientious objector during the Vietnam War, and could not have been a bigger supporter of our student veterans. I mean, he was waving their flag. He might not have been waving our flag, as you say, but he was waving their flag, and he was really, really supportive. He kept coming back to VetNet, say, I want to learn more. I want to learn more. And it's just fantastic. So, we'll steal a term from the military, right? Changing hearts and minds. It happens, and we can really work with those folks to support the future success of those who serve in the military as well.
Well, I find that encouraging. Thank you. I mean, there are some faculty that don't want to take community college courses because ours are better. So, it kind of fits in the same somewhat, but right. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thank you, Melissa.
I did want to add, we don't want to use the term elitism, but there's an Ivy League school where, my day job, I send a lot of student veterans out to this institution, and they used to have a block on accepting online classes because they felt DE was not true education. Yet during the pandemic, they swiveled their whole Ivy League institution to DE. So things change, times change. I can highly recommend VetNet Ally. If you can get faculty to attend a VetNet Ally and not just the choir, not just your veteran services folks, but get the instructional faculty to attend VetNet Ally, it's a wonderful training. And then the other piece is the American Council on Education needs faculty from California to go out there and review the curriculum of the DoD. The more you can get your faculty, and especially faculty that are on Senate or GE committees, out there and see what the actual instruction, the methods of assessment, the content is, the delivery style of military training, military coursework, I think they become your allies by seeing it.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
So we do have another question in here, and it comes back to the grading option. And it is recommended from my recollection, I'll pull the policy after I speak to this, but it's highly recommended that it's pass, not pass, or credit, no credit when assessing CPL in our system. Now, that's not a blanket statement that every community college district has done that. And we see it on many of our listservs in our system if you've been watching it, but it's highly recommended if you haven't that you switch your policy to credit, no credit, or pass, not pass. But I'll hand it over to our CSU partners for that.
Yeah, I am less familiar with the guidance that community colleges have received on the credit no credit option. I do know that we accept that. Again, I fall short on a blanket approval, recognizing that some highly selective majors may say that major requirements require a grade. I've also seen research to suggest that if the student meets 80% of the learning outcomes, then they should be awarded at least a passing grade. So it is an option. We are familiar with that option, and there is policy that allows us to accept it.
Okay, was it James? Someone else had their hand raised and pulled it back down. Was that the question?
That was me, and yeah, that was the question. I'm just finding leadership doesn't want to post anything. They just want to say, here's the course equivalent, here's the units. Let's not assign any grades. No pass, nothing. No B's, no A's. I was like, ooh, that could limit. That could.
Yeah, as long as there are, the legend suggests, and this is particularly for general education requirements, that a pass means C- or better, then you are good to go.
Even if they don't have pass or no pass on there, like there's nothing. They just say units and course equivalent. That's it.
I suggest to reduce ambiguity, they do use more conventional annotation of credit, no credit. Again, that's veers a tad into our admission world. I see my colleague Quanah. Quanah, I don't know if you have anything to add to this, but credit, no credit is what we are familiar with. Pass, no pass is probably treated the same way. Again, as long as there are assurances that a pass means C- or better.
Correct, that the pass or the credit is equivalent to the C- grade. I can't speak for the major requirements, of course, but just a comment on the 550, was it 55055 now? I can't remember, credit for prior learning. The Title V section that says that you will use your your current grading methods, and if pass, no pass is offered for that course, that is available. So again, I can't speak to certain practices on certain community colleges, but that is the language from the Title V reg. Thank you, Terrence.
Thanks, Quanah.
I just love having these experts in the room.
I was noticing some other questions in the chat as well. So Dwayne's question about credit for military experience as opposed to military training, if we transcribe it as such. Well, again, you're going to transcribe it as course. Yes, so I see your other comment. And that actually is a significant change to our policy as well, because I think in days past, we have said, look, we'll give it credit for the training that you've gone through, but we're not going to look at the experience part. But AB 1002 said you need to give credit for the service as well. And I can say, and Melissa can back me up on this, we did not have that word in our policy until that law passed. And when it did, it was literally the morning that this was posted. We went through and added that word throughout the whole policy because that's what the law required us to do. So the answer now is yes. We will review that as well, and as can you, as long as you transcribe it as Melissa said. I think we're going to have banners. If it's transcribed as a community college course, we'll take it. Yes, In fact, we met yesterday, and I said, I think the one question is going to be, will you accept our stuff on our transcript? And I said, we could just have one slide that says yes and be done with the whole presentation, because we know that's what everyone's going to ask.
It would have been much easier. I should have taken your advice.
Any other questions? I see Amy cheering there. we all wanted to hear that. And any other questions or comments? I'd like to throw this out to the field. If you could add in the chat box, does this alleviate any of your stress or concerns with transcribing credit for prior learning? And do you believe you can bring this back to your campus to make change? I know for the two campuses I'm representing, it will definitely make change. It will open up doors. Some of the academic disciplines that have been open to CPL, the culinary arts, electronics, technology, some of them predominantly don't have transfer track students. And there's a reason for that they felt those CTE areas felt comfortable because they knew most of their students weren't moving off to the next level. So now I'm hoping this opens the doors to our transfer students as well. All right, folks, speak now or forever hold your peace. Wonderful. Well, just a huge thank you, Dr. Lavitt, Dr. Thomas, for giving of your time. I know all the presenters are very expensive folks. This training is done by volunteerism, so we appreciate you dedicating your time to the system. I'm hoping this forum maybe eliminates your email inboxes from getting slammed in the next months to come. You guys are great public servants and doing a great service for our student veterans, a group of our students that we dearly love. So thank you. And folks, jump back over to the main room. We will be taking a break until 10:35 that are the next sessions. Thank you again, Dr. Lavitt, Dr. Thomas.
Thanks, Terrence.